We last saw Null proving to Solid that she is no longer weak, silencing him with a devastating sea dragon's roar. Solid and Electora are in disbelief at their defeat. Null's group returns triumphant and her squad mates congratulate them on their victory. Charmy gives Yuno a pastry and becomes jittery when he accepts. The second round soon begins, signaled by the shifting of the battlefield. Asta's group now faces off against Kirsch, who still voices his disdain of the peasant Asta. However, Asta and Zerx begin arguing when they learn the latter placed traps before the exam began. The battle begins and Kirsch unleashes his cherry blossom hurricane, completely obscuring their vision. Both Mimosa and Zerx are helpless, but Asta enters his demon form and performs his black hurricane, obliterating both Kirsch's spells and Zerx's traps. Both sides are astounded, especially Zerx. Zerx angrily scolds Asta for dispelling his traps, but Asta simply tells him to think of a new plan for them as a team. Asta tells him that as strong as he is, a magic knight cannot hope to accomplish everything by himself. Zerx is reminded of someone telling him something similar, a memory that reveals his true name is Zora. Zora reluctantly agrees to cooperate. He tells them that his signature Ash attribute trap magic takes time to set up, and because Asta ruined them all, he can only make 3 simple spells: a binding spell, a pitfall trap, and an attack trap. With this he formulates a plan. Upon learning Magna is a peasant, Kirsch decides to attack by himself, leaving the defense of their crystal to Magna and Sol. An old-fashioned aristocrat, Kirsch firmly believes in the royalty's superiority over commoners both in status and in magical power. He finds Asta in a cave and triggers Zora's traps with his clones. He taunts Asta for thinking he would fall for such crude traps, but as he lands he suddenly falls into a trap hole physically dug out by Asta and Zora. Asta then knocks him out and remarks to Zora that it finally feels like they are a team. After Kirsch's defeat, Mimosa tries to combat Sol, but she is captured by a mud spell. Meanwhile, Zora taunts the defeated Kirsch, burying him alive. Magna arrives and, learning from his experience with Asta, he decides to fight him from afar. To Asta's surprise, Magna has devised a new spell that allows him to make his fireball disappear at will. Sol slaps Kirsch awake and upon hearing him insist that he is beautiful, she replies that the only real beautiful people are those like Charlotte. 4 years ago in the great city of Hecario, Sol sees her father off and she promises to look after the town while he is gone. One afternoon, bandits arrive to raid the town. She is taken hostage, but when one of her male friends refuses to come to her aid, her confidence in men in general is shaken. It was Charlotte who inspired her to join the Blue Roses. Back in the present, Sol stresses to Kirsch the need to cooperate. Meanwhile, Asta begins to keep up with Magna's barrage, prompting the head-headed bull to step up his attacks. Kirsch arrives once more and Zora tells Asta to deal with him. His trap activates on their crystal, sending one of Magna's spell back at him, knocking him out. Kirsch flies in the air, safely out of range for Asta's attacks, but he is trapped by a spell Zora cast mid-air, allowing Asta to knock him out for the second time this match. Sol emerges from the ground, but she loses control of her golem due to Mimosa's magic. She forces it to expose their crystal, allowing Asta to destroy it, advancing them to the next round. Zora approaches the defeated squad and rudely tells them their shortcomings, but Asta tells him he is going too far. Mimosa tells her brother that she is proud of the progress he made in fighting alongside a peasant. The next match soon begins, a long-awaited showdown between Finral and his brother Langris. Despite his bravado, Finral is plagued by feelings of self-doubt, not once having beaten his brother at anything, but Vanessa manages to encourage him. The match begins and Finral asks that he be allowed to face his brother head-on. Understanding his passion, Leopold and Hammond agree. Meanwhile, Langris and Sek perform the same strategy as last round, racing towards the enemy crystal for Langris to eliminate in one fell swoop. Years earlier, Langris prided himself over being Finral's better in all matters of magic, academics, and physical ability. One day they are introduced to Lady Finns, the fiancée of the next house of Vaude. Although dismissive of her, he is enraged when he overhears her call Finral the better mage due to his kindness. Back in the present, Langris conducts his frontal assault but is shocked when his spatial magic is cancelled out by Finral. He declares that it is they who will win. Leopold and Hammond are teleported to the enemy crystal's location, solely defended by Fragile. She casts a sleeping snow spell, but Leopold manages to keep himself awake using the mana skin technique. Fragile is caught off guard and realizes she is on the losing end. Meanwhile, Finral manages to stave off Langris' assault. To everyone's surprise, Finral uses his new spell, the Fallen Angel's Wingbeat, a homing spell that teleports its target to another location. When it hits Sek, it sends him to the Black Bull's base, where he meets an angry Yami, fighting a certain battle of his own on the toilet. To everyone's shock, Langris reveals he can use a similar spell but on a much more powerful scale. Observers notice that the aura he is exuding is similar to that released by Veto, the Beast. Finral responds to Langris' magic with his own, but the difference in power is too great. Finral is badly injured, his body shredded like Swiss cheese. Envious over his brother's ability to make friends with ease, Langris goes insane and decides to kill him with his spatial magic. However, the Black Bulls arrive to the defense of their comrade and threaten to kill Langris. The Black Bulls threaten to take out Langris right here and now, but they stop short when Julius arrives. Owen rushes to heal Finral, but his injuries are severe. An irate Langris wants to fight right away and Asta obliges. Observing from afar, Klaus has always known Langris as belligerent, but he and many others sense that something is wrong with the heir of House Vaude. Julius traps them all in a stasis spell and after recalling their teammates, decides to start their semifinal match. Asta apologizes to his team and asks for their assistance. Zora finds the whole thing ridiculous but acknowledges that something is twisted about Langris and agrees to cooperate. In contrast, Langris declares his teammates dead weight and resolves to settle the score by himself. Marx, recalling Julius' suspicions of an unconscious traitor among the Magic Knight ranks, wonders if Langris is a traitor. The battle begins with Asta and his squad charging straight at Langris. However, his spatial rending spell barrage soon overwhelms Asta, but he manages to endure it thanks to Mimosa's healing magic. Realizing he needs to enter his demon form, he begins focusing his energy to transform and trusts Zora with his defense, who is only cooperating due to his disdain towards Langris. Zora's father, Zara, was a peasant magic knight fondly remembered as a good-hearted man with a penchant for practical jokes. Zora was proud that his father defended the weak and innocent and aspired to be a magic knight like him. His father's death would crush his spirit. Observing his father's comrades disrespect his father's grave, and the magic knights abusing their power, he dedicated his life to punishing them as a vigilante. As defends against Langris' assault, he declares that Langris is nothing like the magic knights his father spoke so highly of. Langris' assault slips past Zora's magic barrier, but to everyone's shock, Zora has drawn a magic circle on himself. He sends the attack, now twice as powerful, back to Langris. Despite this, he manages to erase the attack completely. An exhausted Zora collapses, but he has bought enough time for Asta to enter his demon form. Asta respects Langris' power, but his attitude and cruelty prove that he is no true knight, harkening back to Langris' willingness to sacrifice civilians as collateral damage. Asta's words ring true, touching all the magic knights in attendance including Zora. However, Langris refuses to listen, so Asta performs a black meteorite, crashing Langris straight through their own crystal. At the same time, Asta's team crystal also shatters from the accumulated damage and the match is declared a draw. As the match ends, Zora goes on a tirade against all the match participants, criticizing Asta's short-sightedness, Mimosa's naivete, and sex overconfidence. After declaring no one will respect Langris again, he criticizes himself for not believing in his comrades more. Asta is disappointed that the match is a draw, and as he collapses from exhaustion, he is caught by his squad mates. Meanwhile, Finral's injuries are far too severe, so Owen brings him to the hospital. Concerned for Finral, Vanessa decides to go with him. The next match begins between the eccentric Rill and the cheery berserker Luck. Luck devises a giant crossbow inspired by the combination spell he witnessed earlier. His team unleashes the lightning bolt touted as unstoppable. However, Rill draws up Zeus and returns fire with Luck's own bolt, destroying their crystal. In an instant, Rill has claimed victory. In the next match, a startlingly intense Yuno wipes out the enemy team in one fell swoop, knowing that Asta is constantly improving. The next match is the final match between Yuno and Rill's teams. The final match between Rill and Yuno's teams is soon underway. Rill's teammates, Nils and Ruben, lament that they have not stood out due to Rill's dominance. On the other hand, Yuno has decided to go full strength, revealing he has yet to show all his cards. Asta awakens, disappointed that he failed to reach the finals to face Yuno, but he is comforted in the knowledge that Finral is being healed. The battle begins, and as expected, Yuno goes straight for Rill, but his wind daggers are effortlessly blown away by Rill's painted god. Nils and Ruben sneak behind to try and strike at Noel, but they face stubborn resistance from the sea dragon's lair. Yuno throws everything and the kitchen sink at Rill, but every spell from his wind sickle to his sylph-empowered swift white bow is met with an appropriate answer from Rill, who has proven his status as a magic knight captain is not just for show. With none of his attacks working, Yuno decides to use his ultimate spell, which he planned to reserve for Asta. He unites his mana with Sylph's, which he dubbed Spirit Dive. Yuno's appearance changes, now bearing a halo and a fairy wing on his back, a change which mirrors Asta's demon form. Still recuperating from his injuries, Asta watches on. Yuno's sheer volume of magic is staggering, impressing even Julius himself. Yuno's Spirit Storm and Rill's Phantom Dragon shout clash in a battle of wills. Although their magic appears even, Rill's magic crystal can no longer bear the stress of the battle and it self-destructs. Yuno's team is declared the winner. Although Rill is depressed, Walter reassures him that he is sure to craft his masterpiece of art. and with the tournament concluded, Julius and the king see off the Magic Knights, intending to announce the selected knights in a few days' time. Meanwhile, Mimosa finds herself unsure of how to comfort a depressed Asta who has grown depressed. Yuno enters the room, but upon seeing him in a sorry state he decides to leave. Asta declares that he will catch up to him eventually and Yuno tells him to try. Meanwhile, Julius catches Zora trying to leave and praises him for pointing out the flaws in his Magic Knights. He tells him of how he met his father on a battlefield long ago. Impressed by Zora's tactical prowess and magical abilities, he encourages him to join the Magic Knights. However, Zora says that he is a nobody, just a guy passing through that couldn't become a mage. Asta is still depressed over how the selection exam ended, and despite the best efforts of the Black Bulls, they fail to cheer him up. Luck remarks that the results of the exam will soon arrive and Magna reassures Asta that he will pass. Yami appears and drags everyone into the baths. He shares a story of how he was once a member of the Grey Deer, back when it was led by the future wizard king, Julius. While fishing for his lunch, he is approached by several villagers who offer him food. They ask for his help in quelling a local bandit group that have been assaulting their village and stealing their crops. Yami agrees on the condition that he takes a nap first. That evening, the bandit leader orders an attack on the village, but Yami is prepared and begins taking them out one by one. He eventually finds the bandit leader, but Yami is overwhelmed by the bandits' numbers. Vangeance arrives to his rescue and with his help they eliminate the remaining bandits. However, the leader manages to escape. Vangeance introduces himself as a fellow Grey Deer member and Yami comments on his strange mask. The villagers thank Yami for his help. Later, Yami meets Vangeance along the riverbank and upon learning the two have similar goals, they declare to be each other's rivals. Back in the present, Yami remarks that the battle was his first encounter with the future Golden Dawn captain. Sometime after their initial encounter, Yami and Vangeance, currently vice captains of Grey Deer, are called by the wizard King Julius to investigate a string of bandit attacks occurring throughout Common Realm towns. They suspect a Magic Knight is aiding them, judging from how well prepared they are as though they have prior knowledge of their movements. With Vangeance's clever reasoning and in seductions, they narrow down the attacks to two locations, Imea or Zakadani. Yami visits Zakadani, which has recently found a magical artifact of significant power, while Vangeance watches over Imea, which has been blessed with a bountiful harvest. Regardless of which town gets attacked, the two agree to wait until reinforcements arrive. When Yami awakens, he sees the bandits flying to attack Zakadani. He tries to contact Vangeance, but his communication device is jammed by a magical field, forcing him to engage the enemy alone. To his surprise, he finds the same bandit leader he encountered several years ago, now armed with a dangerous staff. Despite this, Yami makes quick work of him. As he tries to interrogate him, he manages to shake free and take an old woman hostage. When suddenly Yami is restrained by magic, courtesy of Mole of the Silver Eagles and Goat of the Crimson Lions, the two traitors in their ranks. While the bandit captain goes off to search for the magical artifact, Yami starts being crushed by a magic golem. He begins struggling free but is saved when Vangeance arrives. Together they eliminate the traitors. Meanwhile, Julius himself confronts and eliminates the bandit leader. When they return, Julius decides to make the two captains of their very own squads, the future Black Bulls and Golden Dawn. Back in the present, Yami encourages Asta, even if he loses 99 times, he should simply win the next. Asta's spirit is restored, realizing that sulking won't get him anywhere. While anticipating the results of the selection exam, the Black Bull's base begins to tremble. Suddenly, a wall caves in. The fiery Marioliona has arrived. Upon seeing Marioliona, Yami signals for his squad to retreat, but she grabs him by the head and gifts him a bottle of alcohol. She then picks up Luck, Noel, and Asta. Although Magna initially makes fun of them, she reveals that the three were chosen to be part of the Royal Knights. A stunned Magna realizes he has been passed over but resolves to train even harder to surpass Luck. Marioliona notes that one other Black Bull passed but sees they are not present. They are brought to a castle tower to be sworn into the Royal Knights. Among the other passers are Nils, Kirsch, Puli, N, Rill, Fragile, Hammond, Klaus, Mimosa, Yuno, Luck, Noel, and Asta. Mariolian introduces herself as their acting Royal Knights captain until the Eye of the Midnight Sun is annihilated, and to their shock the last bull is revealed to be Zora. Zora explains that long ago during his hunt of Magic Knights, he encountered a man he could not beat, Yami. He was then given a Black Bull's robe and made an official member. This means that Zora is Asta and Noel Sr. Marioliona tells them to change into their special Royal Knights robes, specially woven uniforms that boast high magical resistance. Asta's robe is much smaller than the rest due to the addition of 3 more members crucial to their success: Cobb, a spatial magic specialist, and Tiam, whose earth magic is invaluable in assessing the enemy's base and forces. Nozel, the captain of the Silver Eagles, will also join them in their crusade. The king appears, but he is overshadowed by Marioleona's presence. She galvanizes the royal knights in raiding the hideout of the Eye of the Midnight Sun, warning them that Raya and Licht are expected to be their biggest threats. Asta asks about the location of their hideout, and the king reveals it is in a floating stronghold, in the region known as the Gravito Stones. Raya awakens from a dream from his time with the elves, and remarks that the awakening is close at hand. Asta and Noel visit Fugolian, still in a coma after the earlier attack on the capital. The two bulls owe much to the fallen captain, who left an impression on the young mages and encouraged them to grow. Leopold, by his brother's bedside, says that he will continue to train and catch up to them. The pair meet up with Klaus, Yuno, and Mimosa. After exchanging pleasantries, Klaus warns them that a spy might be in their midst. As they return to the Royal Knight base, a mysterious shadow attaches to Asta. At a dinner reception, Asta's poor table manners attract the ire of Yuno and Klaus. Rill tries to include Zora in the festivities, but he is forced away by a stink bug. As the ruckus grows, the spy abandons Asta and heads to the roof. However, Marioleona and Nozel immediately sense his presence and capture him. Marioleona declares that they will commence the operation immediately, not in 3 days as previously planned. Using Cobb's magic, they arrive at the outskirts of the floating fortress. With Tiam's earth magic, they surmise that there are multiple points of entry, and several magic captain-level threats are present. She takes charge of Asta and Zora, and splits the remaining knights into 4 groups. Group 1, composed of N, Nils, Nozel, and Tiam will infiltrate the base from the upper left portion. Group 2, composed of Ben, Luck, Noel, and Kish, will attack from the lower left section. Group 3, composed of Ruben, Rill, Fragile, and Puli, will assault the base from the upper right portion. And Group 4, composed of Klaus, Mimosa, Yuno, and Hammond, will attack from the lower right area. Lastly, Marioleona, Asta, and Zora will attack front and center. Meanwhile, Cobb will remain outside for emergency extraction. All 5 units infiltrate the base. Nozel and Marioleona are eager to avenge Fugolian, Nozel's sworn rival and Marioleona's dear brother. As they begin to wreak havoc on enemy lines, Raya awakens his third eye, and remarks that it is about time for him to make an appearance. The decisive raid on the Eye of the Midnight Sun begins. Will the Royal Knights triumph, or are they blindly walking into a trap? And this brings the anime to an end. Comment for part 9. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on another video. Until next time, take care.